now the King and Queen have had a scare during their trip to Jersey as part of a 2-day tour of the Channel Islands. They were pulled away from an engagement over an incident that was later described as a false alarm. And I'm joined now by the great Michael Cole. Michael, welcome to the show. So a bit of a scare broke out in the Channel Islands. Can you tell us more?
Well, I'm sure there's a sort of heightened sense of security concern because of events in America, which we know about on Saturday night. But what stands out for me is that the coolness of the Queen, I think we could use the French term sang-froid, cold blood, because we are in the Channel Islands. She was eating an ice cream at the time. One of her aides whispered in her ear that there was a security concern. And she was taken away with the King to a nearby hotel, the Golden Apple, Pom d'Or, and she continued eating her ice cream. So, rather like Drake before the Armada, she concentrated on the important things first. Of course, any security concern is serious, but the King, of course, has been here before. I remember 30 years ago in Sydney, a young man with a starting pistol fired it twice. And I remember very, very clearly the Prince of Wales, as he then was, had a bodyguard, a police protection man called Inspector Colin Trimming, and he jumped on this young man who fired these shots, or cap guns, essentially, a starting gun, and wrestled him to the ground. The King, as Prince of Wales, as he was at the time, stood on and looked at, in bemusement, fiddled with his cufflinks like this, and looked at this scene. But of course, security is the curse of the ages. But there we are in Jersey, one of the least likely places for anything nasty to happen, whatever Inspector Bergerac may have given the impression to the contrary. Of course, it's a wonderful place. The Channel Islands are. The King's grandfather, King George VI, referred to them as our beloved Channel Islands. And the King today said that they were unique and beautiful, which is, of course, true. And they are not members of the United Kingdom. They are crown dependencies outside the United Kingdom, but they are the oldest crown properties, crown possessions. William the Conqueror and 1066 and all that, he was the Duke of Normandy, and he owned the islands, and when he became king of this country, the ownership continued with him. And in the Channel Islands, the king is referred to as the Duke of Normandy, not as the king. So they're having a good visit. The islands are terribly important to us. They used to be called the Honeymoon Islands. In fact, my parents went there on honeymoon in 1937, I can tell you that, and many, many other people did. And of course, a great source of lovely potatoes and tomatoes and cabbages and so on. And I'm sure when he goes to Guernsey tomorrow with his wife, the Queen, there'll be a similarly warm reception. The island has suffered a lot in the Second World War. For 5 years, they were under German occupation. And, they weren't liberated until the war was over. Paris was liberated, Brussels were liberated, Berlin was conquered before they were liberated. And the King and Queen Elizabeth, later to become the Queen Mother, they went to visit on the 7th of June, one of the first things they did at the end of the war.
Well, Michael Cole, that story started with an ice cream. It ended with some Jersey Royals. It then went into some tomatoes. All you missed out was the Jersey gold top. But on a more serious point, in terms of the Royals' foreign sojourns, going on to Australia later this year and also to Samoa, but not making it as far as New Zealand. Why is that?
No, not to New Zealand or to Fiji, which was envisaged. It's the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Samoa, CHOGM, and the King is going there as head of the Commonwealth, which he's been since 2018. It's an elective office. The Queen expressed the view that she wanted her son, Prince Charles, to be the head of the Commonwealth, and indeed he is, and he'll be chairing that and making an important speech. And of course, he'll be meeting the New Zealand Premier and other people from New Zealand, but they're not going on there because his doctor's advice is, yes, do a lot, do as much as you can, but don't do too much. So after CHOGM, we're going to Australia, going to Canberra and to Sydney with important visits. The Queen, who we see there, she doesn't really like, or certainly doesn't love, long-distance travel. being sealed in a cigar tube, pressurized cigar tube at 35,000 feet, not her cup of Bovril. But she will be going with the King, and I'm sure the Australians will be very, very pleased to see them. The King, of course, is very familiar with it, having attended school at Geelong Grammar School in Victoria many, many years ago, and has made many visits there. I'm not sure how many visits the Queen has made, but I'm sure she'll enjoy it. I actually think the Australians will really warm to her. They like genuine people, and they can tell anybody who isn't. But if you're genuine and they like you, they take you to their hearts, and they're fantastically hospitable people. And it's a great country, as we all know.
Thank you, Michael Cole, and that's my tea sorted out. Jersey Royals followed by ice cream. Michael Cole, who's never a flake. Thanks for joining us on the show. Always a delight.